The midnight bus was late. A storm had rolled in over the desolate highway, sheets of rain battering the windshield as the driver, Harris, fought to keep the vehicle steady on the narrow two-lane road. Lightning illuminated the thick forest on either side, gnarled trees clawing at the sky. "Damn weather," Harris muttered, adjusting his cap. He glanced in the mirror at his 12 passengers. Most were asleep, heads bobbing with each bump in the road. Only one, a young woman named Lila, was awake, earbuds in, staring anxiously out the window. The engine sputtered. Harris frowned. The bus shuddered violently before the engine died completely, the headlights flickering out. They coasted to a stop in the pitch-black middle of nowhere. "What the hell?" he muttered, twisting the key. Nothing. Passengers stirred, confused voices filling the silence. "Are we breaking down?" a man asked. "I'll get us going again," Harris said, trying to sound calm. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside into the rain. Lila removed her earbuds, peering out the window. She could barely see him through the sheets of rain as he lifted the hood and cursed under his breath. Then she heard it, a howl, low and guttural, rolling through the forest. The other passengers fell silent as the sound reached them. "Wolf," someone whispered. "No wolf sounds like that," Lila said, her voice trembling. The howl was closer now. Harris slammed the hood shut and sprinted for the door. "Everyone stay inside," he shouted, climbing back in. "Lock the damn door." "What's going on?" a teenage boy asked. "We're stuck," Harris said, "but we're not getting off this bus." Another howl echoed. Closer. Lila's stomach nodded. "We need to call for help," she said, pulling out her phone. "No service." Everyone checked theirs. Same result. Then the bus rocked violently. Screams erupted as people were thrown from their seats. Something massive had slammed into the side. What was that? The roof dented inward, metal screeching as claws raked across it. "Oh my God," Lila whispered. A shadow leapt past the window, impossibly fast. Harris reached for the ignition again, twisting it desperately. The engine sputtered but refused to start. The windows at the back shattered inward as something enormous crashed through. The werewolf. Its hulking frame filled the aisle, glowing eyes locked on the passengers. Rain dripped from its fur, blood from its fanged jaws. Chaos erupted. People screamed, shoving past each other, trying to escape. The beast lunged at the nearest man, biting down on his shoulder and tearing it clean off in a spray of blood. His scream died in a wet gurgle as the creature dragged him backward and ripped him in half. Harris grabbed the emergency hammer and swung it, shattering the front window. "Geo!" he screamed, shoving people through the gap. But the werewolf was faster. It lunged down the aisle, claws slicing through flesh. 2 passengers went down instantly, their bodies torn apart like paper. Blood splattered the seats and walls. Lila crawled over the driver's seat and jumped out the broken window, landing hard on the wet asphalt. She ran for the tree line, the screams of the dying behind her. She didn't look back. The forest swallowed her instantly. Branches whipped her face as she ran blindly through the dark. She could still hear the beast tearing through the bus. The distant screams ending one by one. Then silence. Her heart pounded in her ears. She crouched behind a tree, gasping for air, trying not to sob. A twig snapped behind her. Lila froze. The werewolf stepped out from the trees, blood dripping from its claws. It sniffed the air, head tilting, ears twitching. She pressed herself against the trunk, praying it wouldn't find her. The beast turned its head slowly. Their eyes met. Lila bolted. The werewolf roared and gave chase, tearing through the undergrowth like a freight train. She could feel it gaining, its snarls growing louder. She spotted a faint light ahead, a wooden ranger station, barely more than a shack. She sprinted for it, throwing herself through the door and slamming it shut behind her. The lock was rusted, useless, but it was all she had. She grabbed a flare from the wall and lit it, the red glow bathing the shack in eerie light. The werewolf hit the door like a battering ram. Wood splintered. Lila backed into the corner, clutching the flare like a weapon. The door exploded inward. The werewolf ducked inside, filling the room, its teeth bared in a twisted grin. She jabbed the flare at its face. The beast recoiled, snarling, but didn't retreat. "You're not taking me," she screamed. It lunged. The flare stabbed into its eye. The werewolf roared in agony, thrashing violently. It swatted the flare from her hand and grabbed her by the throat, lifting her off the ground. She kicked and clawed, her vision going dark as it squeezed. The beast leaned in close, blood pouring from its ruined eye, and bit down on her shoulder. Her scream echoed through the forest as it ripped her apart piece by piece, savoring the kill. By morning, the bus was nothing but a twisted wreck, the ground around it slick with blood. The ranger station was reduced to splintered wood and shredded remains. No one survived, and the werewolf moved on, leaving only horror in its wake. The old Black Hollow mines had been abandoned for more than 30 years, but the smell of death still lingered. The rusted iron rails twisted deep into the earth like veins, disappearing into a darkness so absolute that flashlights seemed to fade inside it. Cold air hung thick with mildew and rot, and every footstep echoed too loudly, as if the walls themselves were listening. "Guys, I'm telling you, this is a mistake," Cole whispered. He gripped his flashlight with trembling hands, the beam bouncing across the jagged rock. 19 years old, pale and bony, Cole had the look of someone who would rather be anywhere else. "Shut up, Cole," Jenna snapped from the front. 23, confident and ambitious. She was the type who thrived on the thrill. Her black beanie was pulled tight over her head, and her GoPro camera blinked red from the strap around her chest. "We're not turning back. This place is perfect. If we film here tonight, the video's gonna blow up online. No one else has footage from inside Black Hollow." Max adjusted the DSLR camera on his shoulder. He was tall and broad-shouldered, the unofficial muscle of the group, but even he didn't look relaxed. "She's right," he said, forcing a grin. "Scary sells. Views mean sponsors. Just stay close." Tara trailed behind, hugging her hoodie tighter against the biting chill. "I still don't get why it had to be at night," she muttered. "Daylight wouldn't ruin anything. We could have just added creepy music later." Jenna shot her a smirk. "Horror works best when you're actually scared. That's what people want, authentic fear. Plus," she glanced at Max and lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper, "the legend says the werewolf hunts at night. That's the hook." Cole rolled his eyes, but his voice cracked anyway. "Werewolf, please. That's just a dumb story locals tell to keep people out of here." A sound echoed through the tunnel, long, dragging, metallic. They all froze. Max swept his flashlight over the walls, catching glimpses of rotting beams, rusted tools, and deep gouges carved into the stone, for parallel lines, each as thick as a man's finger. "What the hell?" Max muttered. He stepped closer, running a hesitant finger along one of the grooves. It was clean, sharp-edged, not softened by time. "There?" Tara asked, her voice brittle. Jenna shook her head. "No bear makes claw marks 10 feet up a wall." Cole swallowed hard. "I'm out. I'm serious. I'm out of here." A low growl rolled through the darkness like distant thunder. They spun around, flashlights sweeping the tunnel. At first, there was nothing, just silence, the weight of the earth pressing down on them. Then 2 eyes, red, glowing, unblinking in the darkness. Cole's flashlight shook so violently he could barely keep it pointed forward. "Oh my God!" The creature stepped into the light. It was massive, hunched, its fur matted with blood and filth. Shoulders broad enough to scrape the tunnel walls, claws like curved knives. Its elongated muzzle twitched as it sniffed the air, saliva hanging in glistening strands from rows of jagged teeth. The werewolf lunged. Cole screamed. It was on him before anyone could move. One swipe of its claws opened his chest from shoulder to rib cage, ribs snapping with a sickening crack. He staggered back, mouth opening and closing soundlessly as blood poured down his shirt. "Cole!" Tara screamed, but the beast grabbed him by the neck and lifted him like a rag doll. Its jaws clamped down on his skull with a crunch. Cole's scream stopped instantly. The creature ripped his head free and tossed the twitching body against the wall, where it slid down in a heap. "Run!" Jenna shouted. They bolted down the tunnel, flashlights jerking wildly. Behind them, the werewolf's claws scraped stone as it barreled forward, snarling like a freight train. Max stumbled on a rusted rail. Tara tried to help him up, but the beast was already there. "Go!" Max shoved her away. The werewolf's claws slammed through his back, emerging bloody through his chest. He gasped, blood bubbling at his lips, as it tore him in half with one vicious motion. His guts spilled onto the floor like coils of steaming rope. Tara and Jenna screamed and ran, their sobs echoing through the mine. They burst into the main cavern, a vast open chamber where the ceiling vanished into blackness. The beam from Jenna's flashlight swept across something in the center. Bones, dozens of them. Skulls, femurs, rib cages, all piled in a grotesque mound. Many still wore shredded clothing, caked with dried blood. "Oh God!" Tara whispered, stumbling backward. "This is its nest." The growl came again, louder this time. Jenna grabbed Tara's hand and yanked her behind a toppled mine cart. Crouching low, she covered her own mouth with a shaking hand and prayed. The pounding of her heart wasn't as loud as it felt. The beast's footsteps thudded closer. It stepped into the cavern. Jenna dared a glance. The werewolf was sniffing the air, its monstrous head turning side to side. Saliva dripped from its jaws and splattered on the stone floor with wet plops. Tara's trembling was uncontrollable. Her teeth chattered as tears streamed down her face. Suddenly, the mine cart was wrenched from the ground and hurled across the cavern, smashing into the wall with a deafening crash. The werewolf was on them. Tara scrambled to her feet and bolted for the tunnel, but the beast's claws lashed out, catching her leg. Bone cracked as her shin snapped in two. and she screamed as it dragged her back across the floor. "No, please," she sobbed, clawing at the ground, fingernails tearing off in the dirt. The werewolf loomed over her, claws pinning her down. "No, no, no." Its jaws clamped over her skull and bit down. Her body spasmed once before going limp, her head crushed like a rotten melon. Jenna was frozen, hands shaking so hard she could barely hold her flashlight. She backed away slowly, stumbling over bones. The beast turned its glowing red eyes toward her. She grabbed a rusted pickaxe from the ground and swung it wildly as the creature lunged. The blade sank deep into its shoulder. The werewolf howled in pain, a sound so loud and guttural it rattled her bones. It swiped at her with impossible speed. Jenna looked down, dazed. She was still standing, but her stomach had been opened. Her intestines slid wetly into her hands before spilling onto the cavern floor. She fell to her knees, gasping, blood frothing at her lips. The werewolf approached slowly this time, savoring her suffering. Its hot, rancid breath washed over her as it bent low. "Please," she whispered weakly. The beast didn't hesitate. It bit down on her head and tore it clean off. Blood sprayed across the walls, streaking the pile of bones in fresh crimson. The werewolf dragged the bodies back to its nest, arranging them with the others. And deep in the black hollow mines, the screams faded, replaced by the wet, methodical sound of feeding. By morning, there would be no trace of Jenna, Terramax, or Cole, only bloodstains and gnawed bones left behind. The legend of the Black Hollow werewolf would grow stronger, whispered by locals who knew better than to go looking. But someone always did, and the beast always hunted again. The small mountain town of Ridgeway was the kind of place that vanished from maps. A population of 60, one gas station, a diner that closed by 7, and no cell service for 50 miles. It was surrounded by thick forests that locals claimed were cursed. Outsiders scoffed at the stories until they stayed long enough to hear the howls. That night, the sky was a deep crimson. The blood moon hung low and swollen, casting a sickly red glow across the empty streets. Mara pulled the shutters tight on her cabin windows, her heart hammering in her chest. She had lived in Ridgeway her whole life. She had heard the stories from her grandmother, seen the mutilated deer carcasses dragged out of the forest, but she had never seen it herself, until last winter, when it tore through her neighbor's barn and left. Nothing behind but shredded corpses. She checked her rifle. 1 magazine, 8 bullets. It wouldn't be enough. She stepped into the living room where her younger brother, Jonah, sat curled up on the couch. He was only 15, his face pale, eyes wide with fear. "You locked the doors?" she asked. "Every one," he whispered. "Mara, what if it comes here?" She swallowed. "It won't. We'll be fine." She was lying. A distant howl tore through the night, echoing from the trees. It was deep, guttural, not the cry of any wolf or coyote. It sounded hungry. Jonah clutched his baseball bat tighter. The power went out. The cabin was plunged into darkness. Mara raised her rifle, scanning the windows. The red moonlight was the only illumination now, bleeding through the cracks in the shutters. A thump rattled the wall. "Upstairs," she whispered, grabbing Jonah's arm. They crept up the stairs, the wood creaking under their weight. The sound came again, heavier this time, as if something massive had slammed into the side of the cabin. Then came the claws. Long, scraping sounds moved across the siding, slow and deliberate, like it was testing the walls. Jonah's breath hitched. The scratching stopped. Then the window in the living room shattered. Mara shoved Jonah into the bedroom and locked the door. Something heavy landed downstairs with a sickening thud. The cabin was dead silent for several long, agonizing seconds. Then the footsteps began. They were impossibly heavy, each one making the floorboards groan. Mara could hear it sniffing the air, low snarls rumbling in its throat. Jonah whimpered. The footsteps stopped outside the bedroom door. Mara held her breath, finger tight on the trigger. The werewolf exploded through the door. The massive frame filled the doorway, glowing eyes locked on its prey. Its fur was matted with dried blood, its teeth bared in a twisted grin. Mara fired. The bullet slammed into its chest, making it stagger backward, but it didn't fall. It roared, deafening, and lunged at her. She fired again, but it was too close now. Its claws ripped the rifle from her hands and sent it skidding across the room. Jonah swung the bat, but the werewolf caught it effortlessly and yanked it from his grip. The bat clattered uselessly to the floor. It grabbed Jonah by the shoulders. "No!" Mara screamed, throwing herself at the beast. But it backhanded her so hard she flew into the wall. She hit the floor, ears ringing, vision swimming. She saw the werewolf lift Jonah high into the air. "Please," Jonah sobbed. "Don't." It bit down on his midsection and tore him in two. Mara screamed until her throat tore. Jonah's lower half dropped to the floor, twitching. The beast tossed his upper half aside like discarded meat. Mara crawled backward, hands slick with her brother's blood. The werewolf turned its gaze on her. She bolted out the door and down the stairs, stumbling on the slick wood. She could hear it following, claws tearing grooves in the walls. She dove out the shattered living room window and hit the ground hard. Pain shot through her arm, but she didn't stop running. The forest swallowed her instantly. Branches slashed her face as she sprinted blindly through the undergrowth. Behind her, the beast roared and gave chase. She could feel it gaining. Mara spotted a hunting shack up ahead, half collapsed but still standing. She darted inside and slammed the door, shoving a rusted cabinet in front of it. She scanned the shack desperately. A workbench lined with tools. A chainsaw. She grabbed it, yanked the cord. Nothing. "Come on, come on," she screamed, pulling again and again until her arm ached. The door burst inward, the cabinet flying across the room. The werewolf stepped inside, hunched and massive, drool dripping from its fanged maw. Mara revved the chainsaw to life just as it lunged. The blade met flesh. It screamed, a horrible, high-pitched shriek, as the chainsaw bit into its chest. Blood sprayed across the walls, hot and sticky, but it didn't stop. It swatted the chainsaw away and slammed Mara into the workbench. Her ribs cracked. She could taste blood in her mouth. It grabbed her by the leg and dragged her across the floor. "No, no," she kicked and screamed, clawing at the floorboards as splinters dug into her palms. It lifted her upside down and opened its jaws. Mara screamed as its teeth clamped down on her thigh, tearing it off in one savage bite. Her blood gushed like a fountain, painting the shack red. She blacked out for a moment from the pain. When she came to, She was lying in the dirt outside. The werewolf crouched over her, sniffing her like it was deciding which part to eat first. She was too weak to fight. "Please," she whispered, tears streaking her bloodied face. The beast tilted its head. For a moment, she thought it understood. Then it ripped out her throat. Her body convulsed, blood pouring down her chest as she choked on her final breath. The werewolf feasted for hours, tearing her apart piece by piece until nothing recognizable remained. By morning, Ridgeway was silent. The cabins, the diner, the gas station, everyone was gone. The beast had moved through the town like a storm, leaving only bones and shredded remains in its wake. When search parties came weeks later, they would find the streets slick with dried blood, windows shattered, claw marks gouged into every door. But they would never find the creature. It was already in another town, waiting for the next red moon. They say Driftmore is the kind of place people go to disappear, either because they want to, or because something wants them to. It's a wind-bitten coastal town on the edge of Maine, surrounded by craggy cliffs and pine-choked hills. The fog rolls in heavy by dusk and doesn't leave until the late morning sun burns it away. I came here to write. Rent was dirt cheap. The house I got, an old creaking two-story cottage, overlooking the Atlantic, had been abandoned for years. The real estate agent said the owner vanished during a winter storm and was never heard from again. I should have walked away, but I didn't. The first week, it was peaceful. I wrote during the day, walked the rocky beach at night. The locals weren't friendly, but they nodded at me, stared a little too long. I chalked it up to being an outsider. But then things started changing. It began with the dreams. I'd wake up gasping, sheets soaked in sweat. Always the same vision, a massive figure standing in the fog outside my window, eyes like dying embers, and something snarling. I started locking the doors, pulling the curtains tight. Still, I'd wake up with the faint smell of wet fur in the room. On the 7th night, I found footprints in the snow outside my bedroom window. They weren't boots. They were clawed, deep, bare. The stride was too long for a human, and they led nowhere. They just stopped 10 feet from my house, as if whoever, whatever, made them had vanished into the air. I called the sheriff, an old man named Morris, who looked like he'd seen too many things and believed in too few. He listened quietly, then said, "Lock your doors. Stay inside during the fog. And if you hear howling, don't look out the window." That night, the fog was thicker than ever. I could barely see the porch light. The air felt heavy, electric, like a storm was building that never quite arrived. Around midnight, I heard it, a low, long howl. It echoed through the trees like the cry of something that used to be human. I froze. Then came the scratching, soft, deliberate, right against my back door. I sat in the kitchen with a butcher knife in my hand, heart pounding in my ears. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Eventually, it stopped. I waited until sunrise before opening the door. The wood was gouged, deep claw marks, like from a bear. But they were spaced wrong. And worse, I found tufts of gray fur caught in the slats. I took it into town to a local vet, said I found it while hiking. She studied it under a scope, then turned pale. "This isn't dog. It's not wolf. It's something else." I started digging into the town's history. Driftmore wasn't on modern maps until the 1950s. Before that, it was listed under a different name, Greyhide Point. The local library's archives were sparse, but I found one article from 1892, yellowed, faded, barely legible. 4 fishermen gone. Eyewitness claims beast with man's eyes to blame. Then another clipping. Family slain on Greyhide Cliff. Locals blame curse. Authorities blame wolves. There were no wolves in this region anymore. Hadn't been for nearly a century. But the deaths continued. Disappearances. A pattern of vanishings during the full moon every winter. And all the victims lived near the cliffs. Just like me. 2 nights before the full moon. I heard it again. Not a howl this time, but a voice. Calling my name. Not shouted. Whispered. Raspy. Familiar. Ethan. It sounded like my mother. But she'd been dead 10 years. I peered out the window and saw a shape in the fog. Human-sized, standing motionless in the yard. When the lightning flashed, I saw it clearly. It was me. My face. My clothes. But wrong. The eyes were yellow. The jaw was too wide. And the hands. The hands had claws. I screamed and fell backward. When I got up again, the figure was gone. I tried to leave town the next morning. Packed everything into my car and drove like hell. But just 5 miles out, the engine died. No reason. No warning. I walked back. Took 3 hours through the snow. When I returned, my front door was wide open. Inside, the place was trashed. Furniture torn apart. Walls scratched. My mattress was soaked in what looked like blood and mud. On the mirror, written in something dark and thick, were 2 words. Stay human. That night, I boarded up the windows. Nailed the doors shut. I made a fire in the fireplace and stayed awake with a shotgun across my lap. But I still heard it. The breathing. The scratching. The voice. Let it in. You're already changing. I looked down and saw my arms were covered in hair. My nails were black. My teeth ached. I ran to the mirror. My eyes glowed yellow. I don't know what's real anymore. It's the full moon tonight. I haven't slept in 2 days. My reflection moves on its own. My joints pop when I stand. I'm hungry in a way food doesn't fix. The town is silent. Even the birds are gone. I can feel something inside me, snarling to be free. They say the curse doesn't just kill you. It rewrites you. You wake up in the fog. No memory. Just hunger. You walk like a man, but hunt like a beast. And then, you forget you were ever human. If you find this journal, and I'm gone, please burn the house. Salt the ground. Don't try to help me, because I'm not me anymore.
And tonight, I hunt.
Black Hollow wasn't on most maps. A dying coal town buried in the Pennsylvania wilderness. Its population never passed 300. No police station. No hospital. Just a post office that doubled as a general store. A gas pump that hadn't worked in years. And a few families clinging to land passed down through generations. We had 2 rules growing up. Rule 1, stay indoors after dark. Rule 2, never, ever go near the woods during a full moon. The adults didn't explain why. They'd just say, that's how it's always been. Then glance out the window with a haunted look. My twin brother, Tyler, never gave a damn about rules. He was the brave one. The rebel. He'd disappear into the trees for hours with a flashlight and a slingshot, claiming he was going to hunt monsters. I always stayed back, scared stiff. But Tyler? He said Black Hollow's stories were nothing but hillbilly fairy tales. That changed last November. Tyler and 2 of his friends, Cole, and Darren decided to camp out in the woods, just past the old Hollow Ridge Trail. One last adventure before winter, he said. They packed beer, jerky, and sleeping bags. He left me a note. Don't wait up. They never came home. 2 days later, Cole stumbled out of the forest barefoot and covered in blood. Not his own. He was shaking, mumbling nonsense about teeth and yellow eyes. They found him on the side of the road near the logging site, screaming at passing cars. When he finally calmed down enough to speak, he said it wasn't a bear. Said something hunted them. The sheriff, an old drunk, who barely stayed awake at town meetings, chalked it up to a cougar attack. Darren and Tyler were probably mauled and dragged off, he said. He told us not to go looking for them. Nature took its course. We buried 2 empty caskets. Tyler's was sealed shut. Cole's family moved away within the week. But I couldn't let it go. Tyler wasn't just my brother. He was me, my twin. I felt it the moment he died. Like a sharp snap in my gut, like someone blowing out a candle in a sealed room. I knew he was gone, but I needed to know how. So 2 weeks later, I grabbed Dad's .308 rifle, loaded it, strapped on a headlamp, and entered the woods alone. It was snowing that night, not the gentle kind, the heavy, wet snow that muffles sound and erases tracks. The deeper I went, the quieter everything became. No birds, no bugs, not even the rustle of wind, just the crunch of my boots and the beat of my heart. I reached the old clearing where Tyler said they planned to set up camp. The fire pit was still there, half buried in slush. Tents ripped to shreds. One boot frozen in the snow. Then I saw it. A carcass. At first I thought it was a deer. But then I saw the jacket. Darren's leather bomber, torn and soaked in blood. His spine was sticking out of his back, twisted like a corkscrew. His eyes were missing, face frozen in a scream. I vomited, dropped to my knees and gagged in the snow. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural growl, not from one direction, but all around me, like the trees themselves were breathing. I spun, flashlight beam jittering through the dark. Then I saw the eyes, glowing yellow, set too high, watching me from behind the tree trunks. It stepped out, 8 feet tall, fur matted and soaked with black sludge. Its limbs were too long, its claws curled like hooks. The face, God, the face, was like a wolf's skull stretched over a human head, with jagged teeth dripping red. It didn't snarl. It grinned. I fired. The shot echoed through the trees. The round hit it square in the chest. I saw it jerk slightly. But it didn't bleed. It didn't fall. It charged. I turned and ran, heart slamming, rifle clutched uselessly in my hand. Branches whipped my face. Snow turned to mud beneath my boots. I could hear it behind me, the thudding of paws, the rasp of its breath like a furnace, the crack of trees breaking under its weight. Something swiped at me. I felt claws graze my back. Warm blood trickled into my waistband, but adrenaline kept me going. Just when I thought I'd die, when I could feel its breath on my neck, I burst through the tree lean and hit asphalt. The edge of town. It stopped. I swear I heard it laugh. I turned around. It was just beyond the trees, half hidden in the snow. Standing, watching, then it was gone. I didn't sleep for weeks. Every noise outside my apartment, a branch hitting the window, A creak in the hallway made me jump, but I started researching. Turns out, Black Hollow had always had disappearances. As far back as the 1800s, miners, trappers, children, vanishing in the woods. No one ever investigated. No bodies found. Just rumors of the beast in the trees. I reached out to Cole. He'd been locked in a private facility upstate. Paranoid schizophrenia, they said. But when I snuck in posing as his cousin, he recognized me instantly. They hunt in pairs, he whispered. What? I asked. The big one chased us. But there was another. Slower. It watched from the trees. Watching me. Like it already chose who'd die. His hands were scarred. Deep bite marks on his arms. I saw its face, he said, shaking. It was wearing Darren's face. Like a mask. It smiled at me. I never went back. I moved to Pittsburgh, changed my name, started over. But sometimes, on cold nights, when the moon is full, I hear scratching at my window. I live on the 3rd floor. And last week, when I came home late, there was a muddy claw print on my front door. I've been a long-haul trucker for 18 years, driven across every major stretch in Canada, from the warm coasts of British Columbia to the frozen hell of northern Alberta. If you've done night runs near the oil fields out west, you've probably heard the name Highway 47. Locals call it the Spine, a narrow road that winds through pine forests and oil rigs, between Fox Creek and Swan Hills. It's beautiful during the day, but at night, it's a black tunnel of trees and shadows. And if you ask the older truckers, they'll all tell you the same thing. Don't drive it during the full moon. I used to laugh at that. I don't anymore. This happened 3 winters ago. I picked up a solo haul, an urgent job, well paid, moving drilling equipment from Calgary up to a remote rig site near Fox Creek. The job had tight deadlines, so I had to do the run overnight. By 1:30 a.m., I was deep into Highway 47. The radio signal had faded to static. There were no lights, no other vehicles, just the crunch of ice under my tires and the rhythmic hum of the engine. I passed an old gas station around mile marker 87. The sign was bent, the windows boarded up. Then I saw something dash across the road. It wasn't a deer. I slammed the brakes. The truck fishtailed slightly, but held. I stared into the trees. My headlights caught a glimpse of fur, gray, hunched, tall, before it disappeared behind the pines. I stepped out, rifle flashlight mounted, half expecting a moose or a bear. But what I saw in the snow wasn't hoof prints. They were bare feet, bare clawed feet, at least a foot long, 4 toes, deep set, spaced like something walking upright. My stomach dropped. I climbed back in the cab, locked the doors, and kept moving. 10 minutes later, I saw the shape again. It was crouched on a hill beside the road, watching, just watching. When my lights hit it, it didn't move. It had the silhouette of a man, but the head was all wrong. Long snout, curved back, massive shoulders. I blinked. It was gone. That's when the radio came back. But it wasn't music. It was static. And under the static, I could hear breathing. Then a whisper. Turn around. I shut it off. By 2:15 a.m., I was losing it. The road was tight, winding through blind curves. Every now and then, I'd see that thing again, sometimes darting between the trees, sometimes standing still, always too close. My GPS started glitching, showing me in the middle of the woods. Then I hit something. The cab jolted. I slammed the brakes and skidded to a halt. My headlights lit up a horrifying sight. A man, or what used to be one, was crawling across the road, leaving a dark trail in the snow. His skin was shredded, one leg gone at the knee. His eyes were wide, blood pouring from his mouth. I jumped out with a first aid kit, heart racing. But before I could reach him, he screamed, "It's behind you." I turned. The thing was there, 10 feet tall, hulking, covered in gray-black fur, patches missing. Its chest heaved with every breath, muscles bulging under its hide. Its eyes glowed yellow, reflecting the headlights like polished glass. And its mouth was grinning. Rows of jagged teeth, slick with gore. It moved faster than anything that size should. One leap, and it was on the man. Bones crunched. Blood sprayed across the snow like paint. I backed toward the truck, dropped the kit, climbed into the cab, and floored it. It followed. I saw it in the mirrors, sprinting alongside me through the trees. Keeping pace, it would vanish for seconds and then reappear ahead. Once, it leapt into the road 10 feet in front of me. I swerved and nearly tipped the trailer. My tires caught the edge of a ravine, but somehow I recovered. I don't know how I stayed on the road. I didn't stop until I saw the rig camp lights, barely glowing in the fog. When I pulled in, I collapsed in the snow outside the mess hall. The workers ran out thinking I had a heart attack. I told them everything. They didn't even blink. "You saw it, huh?" One of them, a guy named Kyle, asked. He was maybe 50, missing 2 fingers, smoked like a chimney. "The howler comes out when the snow's deep and the moon's full." I thought he was mocking me, but then he pulled up his sleeve. For deep scars, like claws, across his forearm. "We don't talk about it much," he said. "Too many people would call us liars. But every few years, someone gets torn up. Animals go missing. We just burn what we find and keep going." "Why doesn't anyone stop it?" I asked, still shaking. He shrugged. "Ain't something you stop. Ain't natural. Ain't mortal. It's part of the land now." I stayed at the camp for 4 days. Refused to drive back. When I finally did, I went around Highway 47. Added 8 hours to the trip. Didn't care. Since then, I've only done day hauls. I carry silver buckshot in my glove box. A gift from Kyle. "Just in case," he said. "Because sometimes, when I drive too late, I still see yellow eyes in the rearview mirror. And I always wonder, did it let me go? Or is it just waiting?"